Hi everyone, I'm just settling in to do a quick little drawing, and I'm taking out some of my art supplies. These are mostly just my art on the go essentials, and so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time. This is the easy stuff that I'm taking out, nothing too grandiose. I'm just going to do a little study of a feather. I'm working in my little sketchbook, and before I get started I'm going to clean out my kneaded eraser because it's full of graphite, and so it's just doing some yoga exercises, stretching until all of the old dirty graphite is gone, and then it's clean. This is my blending stump, or tortillon that I like to call it, and my prized possession, my mechanical pencil. I love this. It has a little eraser at the top, which if you pop the cap off, I don't use that, but it's there. And then it's got a nice sharp point, which I absolutely love. The top, you just click it with your thumb and the lead will pump out so you can get the length you need. And then when you want to retract it, you just hold the button down and push the lead back in. Now, I've already started a little bit of an outline of my drawing. It's my bird's feather. I'm really a big fan of birds. We've had birds in our family, I think almost all my life, whether they were canaries or parakeets, finches. But right now I have a cockatiel, and he's the first one that I've had. So studying his feather, which he lost, is really fun to do. And studying it is definitely very interesting because I wanted to feel it, I wanted to hold it, so it was good that it fell out. You don't want to pull the feathers out of birds, obviously, but I noticed that it has a little cup shape, a sort of little dome, and this is a tail feather, and I'm studying, the direction of how the feather grows, each one of those little things that grow off the shaft of it. And I'm blowing on the bottom part of it because it's so fluffy near the quill, the tip of the quill. I should say the base of the quill. And so it's really fascinating to me to kind of study it before I start drawing it. And lucky for me, like I said, I have this feather because I really like to look at things in detail when I draw. That's just my thing. I'm not always excellent at drawing, and that's not always my goal. But the thing that I like to focus on personally is I just like to see what I can do with the pencils. And so I'm getting out my graphite pencils, which has a range of different values that you can achieve with these pencils. And I'm still really studying them and practicing with them. But I'm using one of them now to really do a little bit of dark shadowing around the outside of the feather. And I'll spend a lot of time, just looking and drawing, erasing and looking and drawing, because sometimes it's just a very intuitive process, and it takes a lot of patience, and a lot of times I just like to submerge myself in whatever the subject is. By doing that, I feel like I'm connecting in some way to nature and to the object or the subject that I'm doing. So I had made so many observations while I was doing this drawing. For example, the direction of each of the little hairs that were on the feather, they are so tightly compacted that it doesn't surprise me how these feathers help birds to fly and to steady themselves when they're in the air, helps to keep them warm and keeps the water off of their skin. I noticed that the quill tapers as it went towards the tip of the feather, And it also got thinner so that it was much more flexible at the end of the feather. And so I wanted to just kind of look at what the configuration of each of these little components of the feather, what they looked like. And then as I'm learning, I'm going to try to incorporate that in my drawing. Sometimes it doesn't really matter, like I said, if I get the drawing absolutely right. The experience for me is what I'm looking for. And sometimes, like I've noticed that some of the feathers I do, some of them are more challenging than others. Sometimes it's just if I'm tired or if I'm, really not in the mood to draw. Sometimes I might miss some observations that I might catch another time when I sit down. So I never feel like, I'm not a good artist. I'm learning, and so each time that I sit down, something new is going to happen, and I'm going to have good days and bad days. So I'm really open to that. My favorite part of the feather to draw is the base of the feather. I like those little fluffy, wispy things at the end of the feather, the base of the feather. I'll spend a lot of time just working on the base of it. Many, many drawings are like that for me. Now, the center of the quill, the feather, it's rounded, so it's almost like a post that's coming down the feather. So that's an interesting thing to try to capture. And on my feather, on the one that I'm doing now, it's very black down the center of the feather. And again, there's just a really interesting pattern. So I'm just going to speed things up a little bit just to give you an idea of, just how much time I might spend. If I knew this feather well before I sat down to draw it, I think it would have gone faster. And so because this is a cockatiel feather is something new for me, I'm still trying to get to know it. I've had a lot of hookbill type of birds, and this particular bird that I have, he's very gentle, and but he's very aware if he loses a feather. He's very aware when it falls that it belongs to him, and sometimes he'll go and he'll try to pick it up, like, oh, hey, I dropped something, that's mine. So it's quite comical in a way. I wonder if these are like hairs for them, like if your hair fell off, you might want to get, your lock back. Sometimes I will turn my work, I'll turn the paper around, the tablet around. I don't do that a lot, but I happen to do this when I'm working on the edge of the book, because it's not easy to get my hand where I want it to be. When I'm working at the edge of the book. And I will just continue working light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, as I'm trying to sort of get the idea of how the feather kind of arches from the center of the quill. And there's just so many of these little tiny, teeny feathers that make up this entire feather. I found it very interesting. At the end of my drawing, I like to measure, and I was really, really, really surprised to find out the measurement of this feather. It's actually turning out to be 8¼ inches long, and I found that pretty interesting. Somehow I didn't know that the tail feathers on my bird were that long. I will play with this drawing for a long time, back and forth, and A lot of times I will leave it, I'll leave the drawing even for months, and then I'll come back and I'll work on the shadows and some more of the details. Sometimes it might take me, a few visits to this particular drawing before I feel like I really understand the feather that I'm working on. But for now, I'm pretty happy with it. And these are our dove feathers, the white ones, and eventually I may want to do another episode in my journal of the white dove feathers. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have fun drawing, painting, whatever makes you happy.